Next question. When someone is going through a number of challenges, seemingly out of your control, are we always attracting those things through our thoughts? Or is this our higher self guiding these things for us to grow from? Essentially, the question is law of attraction versus karma. Maybe those are intertwined. And of course, our thoughts have an effect. They most profoundly have an effect on our present moment state of consciousness. They affect our experience of what's happening much more than they affect what happens.
And our actions.
And then, of course, our state of consciousness, our thoughts, our actions that come from those thoughts do ultimately have an effect on what happens, either attract people or repel them. But operating at the same time is this higher wisdom, this inner guidance, these higher dimensional beings that are helping us. It's all happening simultaneously, and so they might be just waiting for the opportunity to interject either some wonderful healing and guidance, or they might actually say, oh, okay, it's time for that lesson in life, so we're going to push them a little bit off balance with an experience that will teach them something. So it's a wonderfully rich and full dance. And then it's not just you, it's everybody else. What they're thinking, what they're doing, what their beings are interjecting into the situation.
It's hard to know what, if a challenge is coming from the soul or if you somehow created that yourself. You don't get to know these things. But what wants to know is the ego, because it wants to sort of judge yourself. It's like, oh, how did I create this? I don't think it's that useful a question if it's from a judgmental place. I think it's best to just say, I don't know, but this must be the right experience. I don't know why I'm having this, but it must be the right experience. And not always want to know why you're having that experience, because a lot of that is just the ego wanting to tell a story about it, wanting to make you wrong, wanting to judge you, or wanting to judge another person or whatever. I mean, so much of why we want to know things is just the ego wanting to know so it can tell its story and be either on top or on the bottom. It's so much more freeing to just like, well, I don't know why this is happening. It must be the right experience, and so I'm going to make the best of it and bring all my resources, my courage, my patience, my kindness, my perseverance to the situation and turn it into the best possible outcome.
It's always been the thing that felt about the law of attraction is that it is very, very ripe for a person to engage in self-blame. When the law of attraction doesn't work, then, oh, there must be something wrong with me, or why can't I do it right? And so I always say that you are never to blame for anything that happens. You're just not to blame. You are responsible for how you respond to what happens. But to say you're to blame, even if you apply the law of attraction, it's like the thoughts that you have that therefore may be, at least creating your experience and maybe creating some of your reality. Where did those thoughts come from? They were inherited, you could say, from your parents, from your teachers, from your grandparents, from
society,
from television, from the media, from now, the internet, social media. They're your thoughts, and they aren't your fault. You're not to blame. However, if that thought, if that experience, if that lesson is happening to you, then you are responsible. If you break down the word, you are the one who is able to respond. You are responsible. That's what is probably the most helpful to focus on, whether it's the result of a thought or the result of karma or the result of your soul having an idea or for the next lesson. It's to say, okay, like Gina was saying, this is what's happening. How can I best respond? What can I do now in this moment in response to how I'm feeling, what's happening, what this other person is doing, what I just did, all of that.
Yeah, the problem with law of attraction is that it leaves out the whole aspect of life that there is thy will, that there is a higher will. that there's a higher plan and something else in operation beyond your own little small ego's will. So if law of attraction means aligning with thy will and doing what you can to support that and create that, great. But there's too much emphasis on getting the ego's kind of desires met, money and success and looks and all that kind of thing, as if life is about that. Our society is certainly about that, and it shouldn't be. It's just making everyone miserable. It's very egocentric. Life is not about getting your personal desires for money, power, success, comfort, beauty, whatever met. It's just not about that. There's something much greater going on in life. And if you make life about getting those desires met, you're only going to be happy when they're met. And then you're not so happy when they're not met. Then law of attraction, like you said, blames you. It implies that you can get whatever you want in life, which is a gross misunderstanding. Those of us who've lived long enough past our 20s and 30s, we know full well that our life isn't fully in our hands. There's things that happen that we didn't desire, we didn't create. So our life will be what it will be. We are co-creating with something much greater. We're not that powerful, and I think it's a really damaging message to send to people, to imply that your desires can be met and they are that important that you try to meet them, that's your measure of success.
There's a wonderful line in an Oscar Wilde play where he said, one of the characters says, there are two great tragedies in life. One is when you don't get what you want, and the other is when you do. And you could turn that around. You could say there are two great opportunities in life. One is when you don't get what you want, and one is when you do. Those sometimes are the most profound, growthful experiences, when things don't necessarily quite go the way you want them to.